Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Will, and welcome to another episode of Learn Real Estate Photography. Today, we're in a gorgeous $3 million home, and I'm going to show you guys all about how to capture gorgeous sunset and twilight shots. Let's do it. Today, we're going to be talking about the prep and the planning, which is a big part of it, the professional gear that I use in terms of the camera, the tripod, all that good stuff, the lens. We're also going to be talking about how to prepare the home, which is the lights and things of that nature. We're going to talk a little bit about editing and how to outsource that. Along the way, we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to get some amazing dope shots. And of course, we're going to be ready for the unexpected. So tearing out the front walkway, there's tape and plastic all over the front door. There's really nothing we can do about that right now because that's part of their plan. But what we can do is do our best to get some amazing shots. So let's jump to it. Now, before we get rolling, I'd like to give you guys a little tour of the house. So I came in through the entryway over here. We've got this beautiful living room, the kitchen, the dining room. There's another gorgeous bedroom over there, full downstairs. It's a $3 million new build home in Tacoma, Washington, and it is incredible. The main reason I'm here is because the deck and the views right now are spectacular. My goal today is to help you guys learn how to capture gorgeous twilight and sunset photos for your clients, because I found that it's been an incredible add-on. It puts you in a whole new stratosphere in terms of like your career and what you can offer to your clients. Clients love it because their properties stand out. So take a watch, enjoy the video. I'm super excited to share with you guys all the steps along the way. All right, so if you're a photographer like me, you know that gear is probably the best part of it. So I'll show you what I'm using today, guys. So the main camera is gonna be the Sony a7S III with this Sony 16-35 PZ f4 lens. It's awesome, love it. Then we've got the Sony 50mm 1.4. We've got a Tamron 28-200 for some of those zoom shots on the mountains over there. Then we've got the Mavic 3 Pro by DJI. I brought a tripod with a geared head. This is an amazing tripod. The geared head is the Manfrotto 410. Super trusty, I've had it for many years. In terms of gimbal today, we've got the RS3 Pro. It's an awesome piece of machinery and does an amazing job. So I just brought these because they're fun and they can really enhance the shoot. But if you're just a newbie photographer, as long as you have a camera, a wide angle lens around 16mm, could be 18, could be 14, and then maybe drone if you need it, but definitely the camera, the lens, and the tripod is all you need. So let's jump into the camera settings that I'll be using for the majority of the shoot when it comes to capturing the HDR 3-shot photos for Twilight. And so what I did is I purposely actually messed up the settings here so that you guys can get an idea of how, if I had just started from a totally different shoot and I showed up, how I would change things. So the first thing that I'm seeing is that the image itself, let me zoom in a little bit, is really blue. So first, I'm in manual mode. I'll go into the white balance. I will change it from what it's on, fluorescent warm white, to you can go auto, but I'm just gonna do daylight right now. I'm gonna kind of reset that. So it's just normal daylight. Great. And then when I press the shutter down, I notice that I've got focus mode is autofocus. So I'm gonna turn that to manual focus. I'm gonna reset my lens to 16mm. I'm gonna go somewhere near the infinity mark. Doesn't have to be perfect for now. It'll probably be around infinity to, somewhere like that. I notice my f-stop should be closer to f8 or f9 if you can. That's awesome. And then I'm gonna go to my ISO, and 3200 is way too high. Might be a little bit grainy, so I'll go to 400. You can go 200, just somewhere under 1,000 is probably gonna be a good call. And you can see now it's a little bit too dark, right? So I'm gonna increase my exposure by dialing my shutter speed till it gets around the -0.3 or just somewhere where it's kind of even, right? The inside, as you can see a little bit, it's tough to see actually with this, but somewhere like that, just so it start to look normal. So what did we do? We changed focus, we changed aperture, we changed the focal length, we changed the white balance, we changed all that stuff. And then we have to go into our drive mode and change it to continuous bracket 3 image right there. I do 2 exposure values. So it shoots 2 exposure values too dark, 1 correct exposure value, and 1 that's 2 exposure values too bright. Perfect. Boom, just like that. And we're good to go. Basically, your camera's pretty much set up and ready to shoot once it's like that. All right, now that I've got my camera set up and ready to shoot, I'm gonna go through and prep the house. And what does prepping the house mean? Let me tell you. So when it comes to Twilights, lighting is probably the most important part because you're really trying to nail that period of time when the sun is down, but also the lights inside the home are perfectly bright, right? And so you gotta get that nice glowing feeling from inside, while at the same time you have that spectacular sunset going on outside. That's really what we're trying to nail here. What I really suggest you do is look at the sunset times, because in winter, in fall, in summer, and in spring, the sunset time, of course, is gonna be way different. It can change so much. So make sure that you're arriving maybe like 30 minutes to 45 minutes early, so that way you can get your camera and your setup ready, but then also you can go through the home and flip on all the lights and make sure that looks really good. Because if you have lights out that are in any of the rooms, it's gonna end up looking a little bit dark, a little bit like flat in that final photo, right? So you wanna have a nice glowing feeling, and that comes from turning on the lights. You don't have to turn on every single light, but generally most of the lights have to be on, especially the exterior lights. Another quick thing I want to talk about is how many photos you're going to capture. So this is actually a really big home, so probably like 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, which is huge. I'm not going to get Twilight shots for all of it in every single room, but you know, with a nice home like this, with a few areas inside, a few areas outside that I want to capture, I'll probably end up giving them 20 to 25 Twilight photos. And I feel like that's kind of the sweet spot. If it's a smaller home with maybe not as incredible of a view, maybe it's going to be 10 or 15. But really, when it comes to Twilight photos, they're kind of more of like an add-on that you want to add to your packages to kind of sweeten the deal and help the agent stand out with their listing. Okay, so I'm going to take my first shot here, and I'm noticing it's a little bit dark and the white balance is off from what we set before. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to go to auto. I feel like that looks pretty good. I'm going to drop my shutter speed down a little bit to brighten it up. I'm going to make sure, boom, it's all good. One of my favorite features of the Sony cameras is the digital level that they've got inside. You can see the digital level right there. If I was to tip the camera, the orange, but when it's perfectly level, it goes green. Boom, just like that. So if you guys have a digital level in your camera, I highly recommend putting them on. They're great for real estate. You can make sure that your camera is perfectly straight up and down. Your verticals are looking incredible. You want to have the walls perfectly vertical. That's how it looks best. That's the real estate style. And we're good to go. So let's fire off our first shot here. I'm changing angles a little bit. I'll be able to get more of the fireplace in this shot. I'm going to drop this down a little bit so I can see a little bit more of the foreground here. We're still getting a lot of nice views over here. Okay, so just a couple photos of the living room. We'll go to the kitchen right now, which looks gorgeous. We've got, let's see, looks like this. Bam. And something I did was that, you know, we've got the circular polarizing lens, and when you spin this, it reduces the reflections on the floor, and you can see how that just brings the floor back right there in the corner. So with polarizer off and polarizer on in the correct position. Boom, just like that. And it really helps. Obviously, the beautiful, I think their fur floors are a huge selling point. So having those in the photos standing out is a huge, huge selling feature. I'm making sure to get some sky in every photo because the sunset photo that we're gonna replace it with is gonna be a real big part of what gives it that sort of Twilight pop effect, right? So now I switched up my angle just a little bit. So we're kind of shooting down the length of the countertop. I'm a little bit bright, so I'm gonna darken it up a tiny bit, just like that. And then actually I zoomed from 16, which is pretty wide, down to something more like, let's try 24. So it looks awesome. It gives it like more of a cinematic sort of feel. So 3 shots in the kitchen, all facing towards the window to capture that gorgeous sunset going on. And now we're gonna get shots of the dining room. Then we'll pop into the deck to get some exterior shots. It's gonna be gorgeous. Okay, so one thing to be aware of, and another selling feature, is that this home has an incredible water view, right? So you can kind of see a sliver of the water out there. But what I just do to make it even better is I'll loosen the tripod up, bring it up higher, and before you know it, you have more of that water in the background. What I'm saying is to kind of give like a high effort to the shoot, and instead of like just setting your tripod and forgetting it and just leaving it at the same height for the kitchen, the dining room, exterior, make sure you're constantly adjusting the height of it as well, because it gives you such a different perspective and changes the viewer's final image, which in turn will affect the emotion that the viewer is getting from it. Are they seeing more of this? Are they seeing more of that? The emotion, the information they're getting from the photo, that's really your talent and your skill as a photographer and what you're bringing to the table. All right, now we're outside. The sunset looks incredible behind me right now. This is a very rare like fall, autumn sunset in the area. Usually it's very cloudy and nasty, but right now it looks great. Okay, so for my setup right now, I've actually raised the tripod a bunch. I went all the way up with it because right here, you want to be up nice and high to get as much of the water as possible without ruining your verticals. Incorrect? Correct. Incorrect? Correct, right? So I'm nice and tall right now with the tripod. One thing I'm dealing with, and we've talked about this in photos before, in videos before, is I'm gonna have a reflection probably right here. So it's gonna be very faint, but on that window over there, there's gonna be a reflection of the tripod. So just making sure that I do my best not to appear in it. So as it's getting darker and darker, what I've got to do is kind of baby step my settings and go like a little bit darker or a little bit brighter, a little bit brighter, a little bit brighter every time, because the sun is going down, the amount of ambient light is going down, and like the colors are just changing. So I'm adjusting the white balance a little bit. I'm adjusting the shutter speed a little bit. I'm leaving the aperture at f9 as long as I can. I'm leaving the ISO down under 1000 as long as I can, so I don't have to deal with as much grain. But that's kind of like what I'm dealing with right now. Okay, so we've done the interiors of the dining room, the living room, the kitchen. We just did the exteriors over here on the deck and by the main bedroom. I would go to the front of the house and do that, and I really love doing those shots. You kind of open the front door, you get some of the sky behind the house, but unfortunately, because the tarp is there, like you guys saw in the beginning, not possible today. But what I will do right now and try and squeeze all the dope shots as possible, just really get as many cool shots as I can. What I'm gonna do is bust out the Tamron 28-200. And so that is a nice telephoto lens, gorgeous lens, really happy with it. This is the Sony E-mount.
Nice.
And this thing zooms in like crazy. It is a great, great lens. And because I've got views of mountains and bridges and a little city named Gig Harbor over there, this lens will be absolutely perfect for right now. Of course, in the world of real estate photography, there is a lot of competition. There are a lot of great photographers, and depending on the size of the market, there's can be a lot of people that are trying to get your clients, right? So it's important to be able to stand out and be your own unique creative force in your market. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Right now, using the telephoto lens really helps set me apart, because most people might just use a nice wide angle 16, get some nice Twilight shots and call it good. But today what I'm doing is adding a little more value, bringing some higher end equipment, being a little more high effort, doing something a little bit different, and showing off a little bit more creative skill. So hopefully the clients recognize that and notice that. And hey, if they don't, no worries, but if they do, it's gonna make a big difference. So I guess what I'm saying to you is look at different ways that you can look at your business as a real estate photographer, how you can bring more value to your clients, how you can set yourself apart in your industry. Okay, here's at 28, and you'll see 200 just zooms like crazy. Boom. Look at that. Get the birds, you get the cars going by, incredible. All right, check this out. So here's 28. you get a decent shot. You get a little bit of the water in there, no big deal. But you zoom into 200 and you can start to see the craggy mountain that is over the water back there. Absolutely gorgeous. It's time for video time.
Whoa, whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Now that I've got all the main shots that I really need, it's time to kind of change gears a little bit, provide a little bit extra value to my client. And what I want to do is put on the camera on this gimbal here and just get some gorgeous, like twilighty, sunsetty shots. So let's switch over to that and get some dope shots. Okay, so when I'm shooting video, I like to shoot in 4K. You can see here I do XAVC-S 4K. It's awesome, high quality. You can choose 60p. Right now I'm going to choose 24p, and that's 422 10-bit. And I turn my image stabilization off, and then my creative look is just neutral with a little bit of settings applied. Nothing too crazy, just something simple and just very lifelike and normal. You should look into shooting in a log format. That can give you a lot of dynamic range, but with this I've always been very happy. And right now with the sunset happening, I feel like it should be totally fine. When it comes to the gimbal, most of the time I'm in pan follow mode, and my custom settings are super duper slow. My follow speed is really slow. And then what I do every time is that I start the calibration. And that calibrates it. It gets it all set up perfectly so it's perfectly horizontal and level, and everything should be good to go. As you can see, the image is already getting kind of dark. So instead of, I can boost my ISO a little bit, but I'm also gonna open up my aperture just a tiny bit. And I think during the course of the next, 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes as I'm shooting video, I wanna end up going to f4, and then we can switch to the 50 1.4 to get those really cinematic, gorgeous shots. My goal right now with the gimbal is to get another handful of shots that I can use to create maybe like an Instagram reel or something just short that really captures the feeling and the vibe and the essence of just a gorgeous sunset inside this home, right? So I've already kind of mapped out places that I want to shoot from the photos. So I kind of just recreate that same sense, but using a little bit more of a cinematic touch and thinking more about like foreground, background, movement a little bit, pushing in, sliding, pulling out, capturing textures and things like that to really bring that video to life. The fireplace is an excellent shot to get because generally everything in here is stationary. Nothing's moving. The couches aren't moving, the pillows aren't moving, the chairs aren't moving, but the flicker of the flames adds like an extra sort of touch to the video. It gives it more life and kind of energizes the video a little bit. Now, in terms of shot length, each clip I'm getting is about 5 seconds long. There's about half a second to 1 second of head, and then half a second to 1 second of tail, just kind of like camera shake as I'm pressing the record button. I do have it mapped here on the Ronin, but it kind of changes as, not always perfect. So I generally think that if I'm going to cut off the beginning 1 second and the end at 1 second, I want to have a solid 3 seconds in the middle that I can use to stabilize, zoom in a little bit, do my thing with the editing. Something I think is important when shooting video is to make sure that you're breaking the vertical rules. So when you're shooting photos, like 99% of all your photos are going to be perfectly vertical, just like that. But with video, I feel like it's important to kind of switch it up and change things around a little bit. So maybe 75% or 85% are going to have perfect verticals, but then you're going to have a lot where you're like really low to the ground and like shooting up, or like up above and shooting like the details and things like that. Play around with it. Like we're saying, get creative, because the goal, yes, is to deliver like high quality product, but you also want to inject your own creativity. You want to capture some really dope shots. Like we said, you want to set yourself apart. Man, look how nice this lighting looks right now with the beautiful sunset kind of twinkling over there, the lights inside. We're just getting to the point now where it's going to be a little bit too dark outside, where it's too bright inside, but we'll see what we can do and keep capturing until it's too late. But right now I want to tell you guys about reflections again. Something that's really important when you're shooting and like the windows become reflective as you're inside is make sure you're not getting in any of those reflections, because it's really easy. But if you can, find like kind of fun little creative ways to like hide from it, do a little bit of yoga, dodge it a little bit, and do your best. Okay, so now that I'm outside, the sun is like long set now by about 15 or 20 minutes. I've really got to change my settings. So I'm just barely at the edge of f4, 1/50th, then ISO 1000. I probably should bump it up to ISO 1250, but I risk kind of blowing out the rest of the sunset that's happening, but that's what we're gonna do and what we're gonna get. I'm making sure to adjust my auto white balance as I'm moving. I've kind of like shifting it a little bit because daylight, nothing really matches it perfectly right now. So you could set the Kelvin if you wanted to, but I'm happy with the auto, and so I've just kind of adjusted it a little bit. A little more blue, a little more magenta to match the colors that we're seeing naturally here. Wow. The cinematic look that comes out of this lens, the 51.4, is incredible. The bokeh, the sharpness, the clarity, that's a prime lens for you. So if you guys want to add like a really high quality, I really recommend getting like one of the GMs. They're so nice. The 35, the 24, the 50, the 85, that 1.4 prime is just like incredible. So hope you guys enjoy those shots. Now let's get to the final shot, which is the drone. Oh, and really quickly, one of the things that you can see that I'm focusing on when I am using that 51.4, and it does have that beautiful out of focus bokeh, is getting a lot of like foreground for depth. If you have that foreground of the pillow or the railing or just whatever, it creates like an extra sense of parallax and depth in the image that can really like take it to the next level and just makes it look incredible. When you guys are flying the drone at dusk, different rules apply. So I really recommend you take a look at your local airspace. Ours is the FAA and how they deal with that. One of the big things for ours is making sure that you've got a light on yours. So I've got this little Velcro light up LED light, really cool piece of technology. You hold this, now you've got a light. This one is called the Firehouse Arc V right here. We've got an airport not too far away, so making sure that I'm visible to those airplanes flying around is super key. Now, when I'm flying at night, what I'm gonna do first is probably put my ISO at like 400, see if I can get away with that. I'll drop my aperture down to as far as it can go. I can probably go to 1/8 of a shutter. Now that's gonna be dependent on a few things. You can see it's still pretty dark, so if I need to, I can always change my shutter a little bit, like this, and adjust as necessary for all the photos. I'm also, again, just like inside, I'm on HDR, so DJI calls it AEB 3-shot, and I find that that works really well. So I'll set up the drone, get a few shots back. This from outside looking in. I would love to get shots from the front looking back, but of course, there's the issue with the front door and the plastic and all that stuff. But I have shot this house before, so you can still see those shots and see how good it looks. What I'll do here is just maneuver the drone around a few different angles. We'll get above, below, wide back, pull back and get a nice wide from a few different angles and really capture the house. Again, the sunset sky above is going to be replaced by something a little bit brighter, so we want to make sure that we have plenty of that in the shot. Okay guys, the drone is a wrap, the exterior photos, the interior photos, the video, everything looked gorgeous. Thanks again for following me along from the prep, the planning, choosing the right gear, getting the settings dialed in, finding all the best dope angles, and even, you know, what we had to deal with at the very front of the house. It's been an adventure. Thanks again for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Love to see you on the next one. I'm Will from Learn Real Estate Photography, and thanks again.